A lot of stuff I really want to dial in on and focus on this week, guys. You guys know we had a little mastermind event in Orlando, which was pretty epic, to say the least. A lot of great takeaways, and just really dialed in. You know, it's an opportunity to kind of refresh and reset and really figure out what we need to do to dial in everything, dial in our marketing, dial in our efficiency, our closing process, and just really put the right people in the right seats. So the big thing that I'm really stepping into this week and wanting to press upon the team is just talking about who, not how, and the who just being us, right? Like for each of us in our individual roles and skill sets inside of the organization, what value do we play? You know, what superpower do we have? And I think you guys already know that in many ways. You know, you've been doing this long enough that you know your strong suits. So the key is, how do we empower you, or how do we empower one another so that we can focus on our strengths and not have to get bogged down by anything else, right? And that's really just my big focus moving forward this year is, one, trimming away the fat, meaning let's dial in with the marketing a little bit more, figuring out what's working, what's converting best, and what's not. And then number two, just really exercising and building your strengths and allowing you to focus on that activity and just repetition, right? Get it in consistently, because that's what ultimately brings results. So here's the focus points for the week, guys. Number one is just a weekly or a bi-weekly lead review. This will be between me and the acquisitions team. We'll start out weekly, where we can just go back. We'll have a spreadsheet of all the leads that have come through, the leads that have been submitted, any offers that might be floating. And we can have a weekly discussion on, hey, let's chat about this lead real quick. Did we make contact? If so, how did that conversation go? And we can take it in stride from there, right? That one, it helps to dial it in. It shows me if the seller is in fact interested, or if we need to can it, right? So as it sits, any offers that have been submitted to the retail fund that they put an offer on, those are still floating, right? They're still floating, meaning they've gone as far as setting that amount of money aside for that property until the follow-up comes up and we say, we're still pursuing this, or let's cross it off the list. Seller changed their mind. So that's going to be just a tiny little pivot that we'll be doing. We'll be jumping on together, acquisitions team and myself, going over the leads and really dialing it in, right? And if there's somewhat of motivation, but we haven't got the seller to that decision point, like for example, Devontae, we're talking, I think, about Pinecrest, and there was one other in Oklahoma City yesterday. If there's still a remote possibility or still a little bit of motivation, they're just not quite to that decision point, that's fine. But we'll mark it, green, orange, blue, right? Hot, warm, cold. Let's just really dial it in like that. And that just helps us to maximize our efficiency and make sure that we're operating like a well-oiled machine. Number two, focus point is just acquisitions focus points. Making sure that you guys are being intentional and time blocking. I know when you guys are locked in, you crush it, right? But just figuring out what are the optimal times of day where the sellers actually answer the phone, and making it a point to time block that, right? Write it down on the calendar. Make sure that it's there, that we're locking in, making contact. And the more touch points we have, the more opportunities, right? So my goal is also to bring in some more leads. We got a lot of leads coming through between direct mail, some website leads, lots of cold call and text blast. But the goal is to scale up our in-house lead generation team so that we can pivot quickly, right? The thing I don't like about direct mail, we're spending a ton of money sending it out, right? We've been talking, it's like a freight train. It takes a long time to build momentum, but once you catch flight, it's hard to stop. in this rapidly changing market, I need a quicker pivot. So I'm going to probably be scaling up our lead generation team. We'll touch on that in just a moment. Another focus point is transaction coordination. So as you guys know, Lisa just stepped into transaction coordination, offer follow-up. She'll be helping to man the communication process on the back end. All right, so transaction coordination, just really dialing in that process. Lisa's going to be stepping in, helping to build it out, organize it, keep everything in folders. She'll make sure that, you know, as closings come through, we're organized, we identify who needs to get paid, and we just really create a good, solid system moving forward with that so that clear expectations are in place, and we can keep it going. And with that, also creating a lead follow-up system, which doesn't need to be complicated. You know, of course, we have the drip sequences inside of the CRM, but I'm going to have one of our virtual assistants. We're going to start putting together a spreadsheet. So at the end of every day, every shift, we'll upload the leads onto the spreadsheet, right? Now, anyone that we've made contact with that we can set inspection, you know, that'll have a certain color. So that's organized and all that stuff. If the seller's a no-go, they're like, no, I'm not even interested in selling anymore. They either changed their mind or there was miscommunication through a text, which we've seen a few times. We can just really dial it in and make sure that we have that documented. But with this, we can take this spreadsheet, right, and say a month down the line, 2 months down the line, we can bring this back up and either text the seller in a follow-up campaign, or we can load it onto the cold call dialer and get them back in the phone, right? It's just helping us be more intentional and bring some of these leads back to life. If the sellers already raised their hand at one point, it's really only one of a couple things. One, they're just not quite ready yet, but it's all about situation, right? Real estate is situational. So good chance that a month or two down the road, they've already been thinking it already, right? Things change pretty quickly. We need to make sure that we're capturing that in our follow-up. And lastly, just vertical integration. What does this mean? Vertical integration is really just building out the back end side of the business, right? So as you guys know, Alex is manning that side. You know, he keeps everything managed. He holds everything accountable on the back end as far as making sure callers are making calls, making sure that leads get pushed through properly. He's uploading spreadsheets and just making sure that everything is in place, right? So keeping him in that position where he can oversee and be a back-end support is going to be integral, right? And then keep people underneath that have the responsibility and ability to take on a little bit more tasks on the back end and create more opportunities. So I'll have a separate thing with our VAs on what that looks like. Pillars that we want to focus on. As you guys know, we're pivoting everything. Never in my entire time have I had a buyer that pays retail value for wholesale deals, right? So this opportunity is enormous, and everything we're doing is building a system around that, right? That's the pivot with more cold callers, because it's much easier to negotiate a closing if the seller's actually getting what the house is worth, right? Somewhere up there in the retail area. So really just three pillars that we need to focus on. Number one is lead generation, acquisitions is number two, and of course closing, right? So lead generation, we have our back end team, got the leads coming through, boom, lead hits our pipeline, we're handing off the baton to the acquisitions team, right? Acquisitions team simply just needs to focus on making contact with every seller, having quality conversations, and just building rapport, right? You guys already know what you're doing, right? But just consistent follow-up, making sure every person gets touched. If they don't answer, figuring out the best line of communication, whether it be text message, phone call, send them an email. We just want to push this lead to that next step. What is that next decision point? Are they still interested in selling? Can we work towards inspection? Or do we need to cross them off the list, right? We can't just have them floating in the stratosphere, we need to push them through, create a process. And of course, closing, right? Just managing inspections. So as this will sit, you know, acquisitions team already has the contact. We're building rapport with them. This first initial inspection, after I send it out, we have an offer. I'm going to keep that on the acquisitions side because we still have that connection with the seller, right? So we haven't quite got a contract yet. That handoff is going to be once we have a contract inked up, boom, we push that to the closing coordinator, right? But for this purpose, right, I'll get the offer amount. We're reverse engineering everything, reach out to the acquisitions team. Hey, let's reach out and see if we can get an inspection set within the next 2 to 3 days. Most of these markets, with the exception of Oklahoma, we can get inspection set pretty quickly. So again, inspection set, we'll get the numbers back, and then you guys can lock in the contract. Boom, push it to the next step. So that's the only 3 pillars that we need to focus on moving forward. Clearly defined roles. We've talked about this before, but just really knowing one another's superpowers. We want to operate inside of that strength. Each of us has a unique skill set, unique gifting. Comes down to identifying the who and not the how, not focusing on the how, but just focusing on our unique skill set and getting rid of the rest, getting rid of that fat, right? We want to trim away the fat. Accountability. This has a lot to do with myself. You know, there's a lot of moving parts between the real estate, the content side of things. I recognize that there's been times that I have not been quite as present as I could have been, right? So I need to take accountability for that and figure out how I can be present all the time, how we could have better systems, brand new data, and that we're pushing the ball down the court, right? We can't just be sitting on the sidelines thinking it's going to happen or waiting like the time is now. And if we're not living in this current moment and we're not pressing that momentum, we don't have that full court press on. If that discipline, if that type of energy is not in place, we're not going to reach the results we're seeking, right? And that starts with how I choose to lead, right? Making sure we have everything that we need. And just commitment, right? Commitment and being with the vision, figuring out how we can come together as a team collectively to, again, just push the ball down the court, have a plan, have a blueprint on where we're going, and just execute that 1-2 pieces of the puzzle that bring everything together and can really accelerate that momentum, right? So this means being present physically, mentally, emotionally. I know we've kind of got away from like utilizing the office space with acquisitions team and some other things. We can have a talk outside of this thing, but just wanted to make sure that we have clear intentions, you know, that we're all on the same page, make sure the expectations are where they need to be. It's been a while since we've had that conversation. So I want to get together with both of you guys and chat about what that looks like, right? Because I really want to invest in the team. I really want to build us up. I want to empower you and equip you with the tools that we need to win, right? But that clear expectation needs to be in place. And that comes with commitment, right? I've been pretty lax, pretty open with letting you guys do your own stuff, have some side hustles on the table and get things going. But I am asking for a little bit of commitment, right? So we'll chat on what that actually looks like. So here's the deliverables. This is really what we just need to wrap it up and focus on for the week. Team commitment. So here's just, this is more for the back end system, but logging everything at the end of the day. JB, I mentioned to you, wanted to give you a couple more responsibilities. This is going to be one of them. Real simple, but at the end of the shift, you'll just simply copy, you know, each lead, the address, put it in a spreadsheet, and we'll start to build that follow-up system so that we have the data sitting there. It's in a clean spreadsheet. Obviously, it sits in Slack, but you can just copy it from Slack, put it in the spreadsheet so I have that. And if we want to load it on a dialer or follow up with them, it's there. And it just really helps to execute a little bit more solid on our follow-up sequence. I will be bringing on 2 additional callers this week. So I think I mentioned it to most everyone. I'm gonna cut bait with the direct mail. It's not producing right now. It's slow. And right now we need quick, we need tactical, we need momentum. And with the cold call team, we have a really good structure in place. We got good management. We got the systems, the tools, got tons of data. We'll be investing in a lot more. We got many virtual markets where we're getting retail offers in, 10, 20 different places around the country. I mean, we need to be able to make quick and precise decisions. So 2 cold callers are going to be joining us. We'll bring them in place. We're going to start implementing this virtual integration strategy and really build out this virtual team. What is this going to do? It's going to provide our closers. It's going to provide the acquisitions team with more leads, more people that are raising their hand, ready to make a decision. But this also means it's going to be a lot more chaos. There's going to be a lot more leads coming through. So we just need to make sure that we're implementing this process, that we're pushing every lead through, that we're clearly defining roles, and we make sure that we really know where we're going at the end of the day, right? That's important. Scorecard, we're just going to start tracking our leads. JB, this is another small thing I'll be giving you, that it'll just be handled at the end of every shift, really simple, but just taking the leads for the day. So, hey, Ritzy got 2 leads, boom, documenting that on the scorecard. I talked to 3 people that were interested in selling. We'll put that there. Here's the leads that came through here. The scorecard is going to help to show us our back-end numbers, and it's going to help us to dial in the process. So it really should only take maybe 5-10 minutes at the end of your shift between these 2 things, and it's going to help us to get much more precise and dialed in as we're working this process. And then lastly is just closing, right? Closing process, we're following up with the contracts, and we now have a closing coordinator who's going to help to manage that whole side of the equation, which takes some of the weight off the acquisitions team. Once the contract's in place, we shouldn't have to worry about that moving forward. So that's really it, guys. I want to keep it kind of short, simple, because the more complicated that we make it, right, it's hard to focus on too many things at once without your brain getting cluttered. But just wanted to kind of line this out, set the expectations, right? Make sure that we're all on the same page. Make sure that our hearts are still in it, right? Because if they're not, it's never going to work, right? And you can feel it when that's happening. You can feel energy flows, right, when things aren't in place. And a lot of it's my fault, I'm sure. It's my job as a leader to carry it on, to make sure everyone's got what they need to keep food on the table and make sure that we're moving forward with momentum. So just bringing that to the light, making sure that we're on the same page. We can really dial in and uncover anything that needs to be uncovered so that we can get back on track, get on the same page, and start closing these deals like on the daily, right? Because all it takes is someone to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in selling. And as you guys know, we're getting full price offers like that, 24 hours. Some of them take a little bit longer. Like we got that Plum Tree one that just came through today because there was confusion with the tax structure. But we got a full price offer on that one. So we'll dial it in as it goes, guys. Again, just really dialing in with the unique positions. So obviously acquisitions, we'll have our own just like one-on-one meeting that we could dial in. We'll have the lead follow-up. We can tackle it all on that same note. And then also just the virtual assistant team. We'll work towards getting a good process in place from there. So that's really all I got, guys, for this week. I want to dial in and make sure that we're pressing forward, that we have clear understanding where we're going, and that we're taking massive imperfect action to get more contracts and work towards some $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 months. It's possible. It really is.